Hey, look, Nina went to the farm stand. Look what she got. Apple cider. You know what I'm going to do with it, don't you? Ferment it. Well, not to necessarily make Applejack out of it. Well, actually, I'm going to make Applejack out of it. But not to drink, to make apple cider vinegar. This is great stuff. What nice thing about buying it at the farm stand is right here. No preservatives. If you buy this stuff in the supermarket, very often it's got sodium bisulfite in it, which will keep it from fermenting, and you're not going to get any fermentation action. Anything you put in it, yeast, bacteria, it won't ferment. That's why they put the sodium bisulfite in it. This, from the farm stand, is the stuff you want to look for. And this little label right here, no preservatives. The first step in making your apple cider vinegar is to ferment the apple cider into what's considered like an applejack. That is to do a yeast ferment on the cider and convert what the sugar content of the apple juice into alcohol. And we'll do that with yeast. This is a champagne yeast that I like, made by Red Star. These are about $1 a packet online. This is enough for 5 gallons in here. So we're just going to put a little tiny bit in each jar. It's yeast. It will reproduce. So, 1/8 of a teaspoon, the tiniest little bit. You really don't want a lot in there. Let's get some in the other jar while we're at it. If you can see, I've got 1/8 of a teaspoon. From there, cider goes straight in. These are just gallon jugs from the liquor store. You probably recognize them. I think one was a Gallo Burgundy, and I don't know what the other one was. But definitely save your big jars for fermenting. Maybe you've got a friend that's a big wine drinker, and you can con them into drinking a bottle of this stuff. You can usually pick up a bottle of it for about 15 bucks. It'll cost you that alone for the glass jug. So might as well spread the wealth with friends. Nice thing about putting the yeast in first, the juice definitely agitates that yeast and gets it mixed in with the beverage here. But I know your first reaction might be to go ahead, hey, this is a gallon jug right here, why don't I just ferment in this? This is plastic. You really don't want to ferment in plastic. Sure, there's new BPA-free plastics and everything, but you really, if you're going to do any serious fermenting, you want to do it in glass. We need to close this off. This is going to be fermenting. The yeast is going to convert the sugar into alcohol, and the byproduct of that is carbon dioxide. So we need to trap the carbon dioxide in there, and that'll prevent any mold growth, but we want to allow the carbon dioxide, there's going to be quite a bit of it, to breathe and get out. You can do that with an airlock fermenter. What you do is there's a little mark on here. You fill this up with water and stick it in a cork, close it up, trick, get it wet. And then this can go right in here. Add a little bit of water while it's not already sealed. You can see this is a nice tight seal I've got. But go ahead and fill that up just to the line and close it up. And the air will come up, bubble through here, and no oxygen can get into here that can upset our yeast ferment. Rinse and repeat. All right, these are ready to go down into the cellar. We'll check on them in a day or two and see how they're fermenting. This is basically, we're gonna have to ferment this for about a month to get the bulk of the sugar out, and then we can go into the second step, which will be the bacterial ferment of the alcohol into vinegar. So here's where our apple cider will spend the next month or so of its life. I've got it up on top of a shelf over by the refrigerator where it'll stay warm. You can see I've got it in a plastic box. Every once in a while we get a warm day and the yeast takes off and the apple juice foams up and it bubbles out right through that airlock we were just looking at. So just as a precaution, I put both jugs in a plastic bucket. So if they do decide to vomit, we'll be ready for the overflow. Let's check back on this in a couple of days and see how our ferment's coming along. Oh, this looks great. You can see the carbon dioxide bubbling out through the airlock. You can see the tiny bubbles coming up inside the jug and breaking at the surface there and forming a little bit of foam. This is perfect. This is just what I want to see. This will go on for probably another 2 weeks. We'll check it again. So this cider's been sitting down in the basement for about 2 weeks, and I'd go and check on it every couple of days and watch the bubbling action. The bubbling really took off fast and furious towards the day 5 through day 7, 8, 9, something like that. And what happens when it's doing that is fermenting, it's eating up all the sugars, the yeast are reproducing like crazy, and as the yeast are reproducing, they're splitting and giving off and dying, and all those yeast bodies sink to the bottom here, and slowly as we ferment things, liquids, all those dead bodies and all the little bits of apple in the apple juice start to settle out. So you can see that there's this bottom here, some people call it sots. What you want to do is when you pour this off, you want to pour it into the crock and leave all that behind. We're trying to refine this juice the best we can, and that way our finished product, our apple cider vinegar, will be a nice clear product and won't have all this sediment in it. We really want to get away from having all this sediment in the finished product. So let's see if we can pour this off without upsetting the sediment too much. And I just want to let this bubble here in the neck find its way here. Now some air can come through and I'm not bubbling as much in the neck. I can pour a little faster, but you can watch that sediment sit there. Smells great. Any of you Applejack fans, basically what we have here is Applejack. The key is, if you like to drink, don't drink this because it's delicious and you'll be addicted and you won't have anything left for, you won't have any left to make vinegar with. So we'll pour off. I think I was pretty close to the line there. I'll strain the rest of this, but this top part I can pour off nicely and get what I want. Just let that air come in the neck so it doesn't agitate the bottom sediment. If you have a siphon tube, you can siphon it out of these bottles. Is probably the best way to do it. I'm going for simplicity here. I know not everyone on YouTube has access to a siphon. That's good enough. Alright, so I got 2 gallons minus 2 inches in both jars. Next we're going to want to inoculate the cider, the Applejack basically is what we have here, the apple wine, with Acetobacters. What we were doing before was a yeast ferment, and using yeast to ferment the sugar in the apple juice into alcohol, and it gave off carbon dioxide. Next we're going to use an Acetobacter, which is found in some unpasteurized vinegar. This Bragg's product you've probably seen a lot of on the internet. A lot of people buy this stuff. This was $4, I think, for a pint. We're making a couple of gallons here, so I don't mind spending a couple of bucks to get as much as I do. But basically, this is the Acetobacter. This is the bacteria that will convert the alcohol into acetic acid, Acetobacter, acetic acid. So we're going to add half a bottle. That ought to do it. We'll save the rest of this for the next batch. From here, back to where we were. Let's cover it up, keep the dust out, keep the flies out, keep the fruit flies from finding this and laying eggs in it, and you'll get vinegar eels, which are basically the fly larvae swimming around. Not pleasant. They're harmless. If you get vinegar eels, don't flip, don't dump the whole thing out. Strain it, keep going. But best of all, just put it, I throw a towel over it. Some people tie the towel on, but you need air. What we're doing now is we're using these Acetobacter. The yeast, we wanted to do an anaerobic, an airless ferment. This is an aerobic bacteria, so it needs the air exchange. It needs some air, so a little bit of air will get through this towel. It'll give off some carbon dioxide. Mostly what it's going to give off is cellulose. As the Acetobacters break down the alcohol, they're going to give off cellulose. And what will happen is you'll see slowly a layer form of cellulose floating on top of this. And so what we want to do is try to make that, and it's kind of a cool thing, you'll actually make a Vinegar Mother in doing this. The Vinegar Mother, like the bottle says, with the mother, is kind of dissolved and very particulate in this. But if you let this sit for, at this point, a couple of weeks again, you'll form a mother will grow in this, and you'll have a Vinegar Mother, and you won't have to buy this anymore. So once you start making batches of vinegar, you'll actually have a Vinegar Mother that you can cut up and add to the batches of fermented juice. And then you'll have a way to constantly be making vinegar. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take this and put this downstairs, and I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. A real handy way to clean out the jugs once you're done fermenting in them is use a bottle washer. This is something you can pick up on Amazon for a couple of dollars. Basically, it screws onto your tap. You'll need to find a tap in your house that has the proper kind of fitting. You can buy an adapter for these that will fit pretty much anything. Basically, attach it to your hardware, turn on the water, and this acts like a switch. So when you push down on this with the edge of the jug, it rinses out the bottle with a high pressure spray. Clean as a whistle.